this way, and Dan's going to guide him in order to do so. And basically, Dan's going to set Elvis up for a little bit piece of food. Now, we've got some beef here today, a bit of cow. Of course, not an overly natural food item for a saltwater croc. You don't find cows so much out in the bush. They more so would be feeding on things like wallaby, kangaroo, water buffalo. But of course, he's never going to turn down a bit of beef. They love that. In fact, there's not much that they don't love. As long as it's meat, they'll eat it. Now, we'll watch the way that Elvis moves beneath the water. He does not create a single ripple or disturbance as he does so. Now, he can do that due to all the lumps and bumps that line the back and the tail. Saltwater crocodiles and all crocodilians are quite armor-plated. They have small pieces of bone underneath the skin. We call those osteoderms. And those osteoderms basically enable them to move beneath the surface without creating a single disturbance. Of course, a very efficient way of sneaking up on a potential food source. You can imagine kangaroo coming down to the water's edge here to take a drink. The saltwater crocodile is going to slide up very stealthily, and it will basically go undetected until right at that last second. And then, he's going to put on a strike out, and grab that piece of food. Now, we're actually going to take you inside the yard because Elvis is coming right around that corner there, and he'll be on us before we know it. Now, Danny, you going to try and jump him there, or?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. I'm going to stand right here then. We'll see what Elvis does where he goes. Now, you can see we're using some food tied onto a bamboo stick, and we use bamboo because they can smash that and grab it and, bite it if they need to. It's a lot better than using something like steel, which they could hurt their little teeth on. Now, I say little teeth, they're not, they're certainly not little, particularly on Elvis. He does have some of the largest teeth you will ever see on a crocodile anywhere. And he has an extremely large head. His head probably weighs, probably the same as I do, 80 or 90 kilos on its own. The entirety of him, his whole body, probably weighs the best part of 450, maybe even 500 kilos. Now, in a few seconds, maybe right now, he's going to crack the surface with his eyes, his ears, and his nasal disc. You can see there he goes right now. And what this means is he'll be able to hear, see, and smell exactly what's going on. He'll be able to hear my voice, but he'll more importantly be able to see Dan and see that food. Just being a little cheeky there. Here he goes again. Now, it is important for us to move Elvis around a little bit. Here he goes. All right. He's going to munch it a few times. We'll get in there a little bit closer to Elvis. He's probably going to come straight over here thinking I've got more food, but I don't, so I'm going to back up very quickly.
I might swing him the other way.
And Dan's going to swing him the other way.
Come on.
Take him away from us. But there you go. There was a bit of action from Elvis. You saw him throwing his head around. And now he's back on Dan, fortunately. And why wouldn't he be? Dan's got another piece of food that he's going to feed Elvis. This time on a much shorter stick, so this could be a lot more interesting. Far less margin for error. But again, he's just getting some beef. But we feed him all sorts of things here at the park. He'll eat fish, chicken, goat, deer, all sorts of different things. And now you can see Elvis has gone back underneath the water. I might quickly get a shot of that. Back underneath, which is far more typical of a wild crocodile. The captive crocs, they can get quite confident, tend to skim around on the surface. And of course, Elvis is a captive crocodile now, but he was once wild caught. And quite often you see him doing this, reverting back to his natural instincts, heading under the water like a wild croc would that was stalking an animal at the water's edge. And today that animal is Dan, standing right at the edge there. And we are going to watch as Elvis makes his way out for that second bit of food. Here he goes. Oh!
Oop. There we go.
All right. Oh! A little bit of a crush of the bone at the end there. They, of course, have an incredible jaw force, closing jaw force. You would have heard it on that first hit. When the jaws come together, they make that sound. We call it a jaw pop. And it's basically 3,500, 4,000 pounds per square inch closing jaw pressure coming together. So when it comes together and there's no food inside, it makes that hollow crack sound. And then, of course, if there is food inside, or your arm or your leg, it's pretty well game over. Now, Elvis is going to turn around, hopefully head in the opposite direction, because I'm about to turn my back to the water and answer some questions. So let's see how we go. All right.
So how does Elvis's behaviour differ from a wild croc?
So there's a few things. I spoke very briefly about one of them just before. Going under the water. That's quite similar to what a wild crocodile would look like and what it would do, because it's living in dark, murky water. So it's relying on that colour of the water to camouflage. But there's a few things that he'll do that are a little bit different to a wild crocodile. He is a lot more confident. He knows, who we are. He knows that we come in and feed him more or less, most days at the moment. But so he can fall into, I guess, a bit of a routine. He knows the go. He knows where we feed him. Whereas a wild crocodile kind of has to rely a little bit more on their instincts and their senses to know where food's coming down, what's happening, and
What could Elvis bite through?
Yeah, we're moving.
What could Elvis bite through?
Yeah.
There's not much he couldn't bite through, to be honest. As I mentioned before, they have an extreme jaw force. They have the strongest bite force of any animal on the face of the earth. So quite impressive. And he can bite straight through bone. He can bite through, your leg, your arm, torso, anything really, quite easily. So he's not going to bite through steel or something like that. But yeah, in terms of flesh and bone, he can go straight through any of that.
So we know that he'll go for, mammals at the water's edge. Do they ever hunt for fish?
Yeah, especially when they're smaller, they're probably feeding more so on fish and perhaps small water birds and things like that. So they may be feeding more so out in the water, whereas once they get to a certain size, they don't really want to go after a fish or a crab or something that's small like that. They want to be going after those medium to large sized mammals. So their behaviour and their hunting style changes a little bit depending on their growth. So as they grow larger, they tend to be hunting more at the water's edge where they're going to encounter those large mammals. But when they're smaller, water birds, crabs, turtles, all sorts of things would be on the menu.
We've got a couple of people asking, does Elvis have a girlfriend?
No girlfriend for Elvis. He lives in this pool on his own, and there's good reason for that. He hasn't got his whole life being on his own. He has been introduced to a few females in the past, not here, but where he was before, the reptile park, and that didn't end so well for those females. They actually ended up dead, to put it lightly. So he doesn't get along with the ladies too well. Obviously wants to be on his own, and we're quite happy to keep it that way here at the park.
All right, Jake, we'll wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Last question. Do you think that Elvis has a favourite kind of food?
Oh, I'd say probably maybe chicken. We feed him chicken quite frequently, and he does love it. But occasionally, when you show him a bit of red meat, beef or kangaroo or something along those lines, he goes quite crazy for it. So, anything along those lines. He's not too fussy. All right, well, we might wrap it up there, I think, guys. It's been a bit of a mismatch crocodile feeding, but that's all right. Apologies if there was some technical difficulties. I hope you enjoyed it. Elvis is certainly happy. A couple of bits of food in his gut. Dan's safe. Did well. And, we will leave it there. Thank you, guys. See you next time.